My boyfriend's parents keep retelling his childhood like it was magical, and now I understand why he hates going home. I have been with my boyfriend for about a year and a half, and one thing I noticed early on is that he gets weirdly quiet anytime his childhood comes up. Not emotional exactly, just shut down. He changes the subject, leaves the room, or suddenly gets very interested in washing dishes. I assumed maybe his family was just awkward. Then I spent a weekend with them. His parents are the kind of people who tell stories about his childhood like they were raising a charming little tornado and everyone should laugh along. At dinner, his mom told this long story about how, when he was 9, he used to hide food in his room because he was dramatic and always on some hunger strike when he didn't get his way. His dad added that they had to take his bedroom door off for almost a year because he was secretive and needed to earn privacy back. They both laughed. His younger sister laughed too, like she has heard it 100 times. My boyfriend just stared at his plate. Later that night I asked if those stories were even true in the funny way they tell them. He said the food thing happened because they were locking the kitchen after dinner, and he started keeping crackers in his room because he got hungry at night. The door thing happened after he asked his mom to stop reading his journal. He said they turn every bad memory into some cute family anecdote so nobody ever has to admit anything was messed up. The next morning his mom started telling another classic story about him crying before school, and I cut in and said, "You guys really tell some dark stuff like it is adorable." The whole table went silent. My boyfriend later thanked me, but his parents said I was rude and poisoned the vibe for no reason. Now his sister texted that I humiliated them in their own house. I work at a mental asylum. Everyone here is sane, happy, and perfectly healthy. I applied for the job on a whim. It was one of dozens of government listings, anything that paid better than what I was making, most of them I barely remembered applying for. So when I got the email back, I had to reread it twice. Patient supervisor, private mental facility, salary, higher than expected. Almost 4 times higher. I accepted before I could talk myself out of it. A few days later, a letter arrived. No company branding, just an address, a time, and brief instructions. Report to Bradley, facility entrance, role, patient supervisor, handover. I pulled into the parking lot for my first day yesterday. It was a gray Friday morning, and the sun was just starting to emerge, casting an orange glow over the large building. From the outside, it was exactly what you'd expect: brick walls, tall fences, cameras, tight security. The kind of place you don't accidentally wander into. "John?" A man in his late 50s stood there in a dark blue uniform. "I'm Bradley," he said, shaking my hand. "You're taking over from me." He glanced up at the building inside. 30 years and I'm done. This time next week, I'll be on a beach with the missus, cocktail in hand. I chuckled as we walked inside. The moment I stepped through the glass doors, I stopped. The inside didn't match the outside at all: polished floors, purple carpet, marble reception desk. Quiet. And very expensive looking. It looked more like a hotel than an asylum, no shouting or chaos to be seen anywhere. "Most patients are still asleep," Bradley said, as if reading my thoughts. "You'll see more later." I followed him down the hall. The metal doors at the end had been wedged open with a shoe. He pulled them open and they slid apart. "Your job's simple," he began. "You get assigned 1 patient a week. Follow them, observe, report anything concerning." "Like what?" He shrugged. "Honestly? Nothing ever really happens." I raised an eyebrow skeptically. Just then, a door opened and a young man stepped out in a bathrobe with a coffee in his hand. He couldn't have been older than early 30s. He had dark hair, still damp like he'd just taken a shower. He looked confident and relaxed. He smiled when he spotted us. "Morning." I leaned slightly toward Bradley. "Is he staff?" Bradley shook his head. "Patient." I stared. The man approached, eyes flicking briefly to Bradley. For a split second, he looked confused. Then Bradley grinned. The man's expression snapped back into place, as if a switch was flipped. He smiled again and held out his hand. Tavian, he said. Call me Tav. Good to meet you. I hesitated. Bradley chuckled, and Tav laughed. Oh, come on, Tav said. I'm not gonna rip your arm off. I started. Not all of us are running around in straitjackets, you know, he added casually. This isn't Arkham. Bradley snorted. Right, I muttered, shaking his hand. His grip was firm. When lunch came around, we entered the cafeteria. It looked more like a mini Michelin star restaurant than a hospital lunch hall. The kind of place that served a droplet of food in the middle of a huge plate. Bradley sat with the patients. Not near them, with them at their table. I followed hesitantly and sat opposite him as the other patients filed in. Tav slid into the seat next to him, and a few others joined their side of the table. Tav was now dressed in a sleek black Nike running top and joggers, like he'd just finished a morning workout. So, Bradley began, what did you do before this, John? Office job, I said. Admin. The 9 to 5, said Tav nonchalantly, cutting into his steak. Used to work in insurance, I get it. Just then, a young blonde woman sat beside me. She looked between me and Bradley curiously for a second, then a smile spread across her face as she turned to me. Bryony, she said, offering her hand. You the new supervisor? I nodded, shaking it. She was wearing an Apple Watch. She glanced at Tav across the table and they grinned at each other briefly. I noticed it, but I didn't understand it. Then she turned back to me. Someone's gotta replace him, she added, looking towards Bradley. He's getting old. Everyone laughed, and the conversation drifted to Bradley's retirement plans. It felt far too normal, like lunch with coworkers, not mental patients. The tour with Bradley continued after lunch. Doctors in white coats nodded at us politely. I wasn't even sure who was a patient or who was staff. There were no gowns, no medication carts, no restraints. The common room had a fireplace and a huge plasma screen TV. Just people lounging around and chatting, it felt like a resort. By the end of the day, I didn't know what to think. Bradley handed me a folder and a small remote with a red button on it. Schedules, protocols, he said. Any issues, press the button and staff will come running. Not that you'll need it. Then he looked around the place and sighed. Well, I'm out. He reached into his pocket. Then he paused. Left my badge at home on my last day. Brilliant. I shrugged and handed him mine. Here, I said. Ah, thanks. Bradley swiped it on the door and handed it back to me. Then gave me a salute and left. Across the room, Tav and Bryony were watching, amused. They probably just found it funny he'd forgotten his badge, I thought. I headed to the locker room to grab my things. The moment I stepped inside, the smell hit me immediately. Metallic and pungent. I gagged, covering my mouth. What the hell was that? The lockers looked like they were pushed out further than they were this morning. I stepped closer and looked behind them. And then I saw it. A body was wedged between the lockers and the wall. One arm twisted beneath him. Fingers stiff and curled. His dark blue uniform was soaked through. Blood was smeared across the metal drag marks, like he'd been forced into the gap after it was over. I screamed and pushed the button. The alarm sounded and staff rushed in, crowding around the body. The director glanced down into the gap. Then he looked up at me slowly. Who let you in this morning? He asked quietly. Everyone was silent. Be Bradley, I said. He pointed at the body. That is Bradley. Laughter erupted behind me. I turned around. The patients were crying with laughter. Tav was covering his face, and Bryony was almost in tears. The director took a tablet from security and started watching the footage. As he saw me handing the security badge to the man in the blue uniform, his expression darkened, then his face turned red. That, he said slowly, is not Bradley. That's Ed. My stomach dropped. You just let a patient walk out. He looked up at me slowly, irate, his face twisted in fury. You had one job, he snapped. One job, you stupid government buffoon. The laughter behind me grew even louder. That's not I stammered, mortified. I was just with Did he even give you a uniform? He yelled. My face burned as the realization dawned. Come on, director, he's just a baby. Bryony said sweetly. You're gonna make him cry. Government wage slave, someone else snorted, what did you expect? The director turned to them. You think this is funny? You want this place shut down? Relax. We just wanted to see if Ed could pull it off. Tav smirked. Didn't think anyone would be that stupid. At least he gets you tax deductions. I stood there shaking. Not only did no one seem to care that there was a dead body behind the lockers, but now I was being violently berated by my boss, who I'd just met on my first day at a new job. In front of an entire facility of mental patients, who were joining in, and had all known that another patient was pretending to be a dead staff member for an entire day, right in front of me. The director waved a hand at security, who started pulling the body out. Dispose of it, the director muttered. Call legal. He shoved a uniform into my hands and glared at me like I was scum, then stormed out. The crowd dispersed, leaving me in mortified silence. Then the janitor walked in with a bucket and mop, and began cleaning like it was routine. What the hell is wrong with this place? I muttered. You, he said nonchalantly. I blinked. Excuse me? He leaned on his broom. No one filled you in, he said. No one here's actually insane. They just had lawyers good enough to dodge death row with an insanity plea. My mouth went dry. They all ended up here? I asked shakily. He exhaled, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Money talks. Same circles, same connections. They bankroll this place, keep it quiet. You're the only part they can't get rid of, government requirement. The door opened again and I flinched. Tav entered and smiled at the janitor, ignoring me completely. Hey, he said to the janitor. How's the wife? Good, the janitor said, smiling. They shook hands, and Tav passed a folded bill into his. Take her out somewhere nice. The janitor pocketed it and chuckled with a grateful nod of appreciation. Tav grabbed something from a locker and left. Didn't look at me once. So now I'm the joke. In a facility full of people smart and connected enough to get away with the worst things imaginable. I don't know how I'm gonna go back there on Monday. God help me. There are rules for using the bathroom in my apartment. I finally understand why. When I moved into my new apartment, the building owner came to talk to me about its rules. The conversation seemed normal at first, until she brought up the bathroom rules. She handed me a sheet of paper with a list of all the bathroom rules. I noticed that as she gave it to me, she looked at me with a mix of fear and firmness. Here's the list she gave me. Bathroom rules: do not leave the tap running for more than 2 minutes between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., do not flush the toilet between 10 p.m. and 2:30 a.m., do not take a shower between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., if any of the previous rules are broken, perform the entire process with your eyes closed. Resist the urge to open them. All of these rules must be followed exactly. No exceptions. All the rules seemed normal enough, just a bit specific. But the last one caught me off guard. It wasn't exactly difficult, just strange and oddly specific. But I didn't think these rules would stop me from staying in the apartment. The first week was normal, nothing to report. I work night shifts, so I was never home during the hours restricted by the bathroom rules. But today was different. I was arriving at the apartment after a run. I looked at the clock, it was 9:33 p.m. I was still a little far away and I definitely wouldn't get there before 10 p.m., and I still needed to shower before work. I arrived at 10:11 p.m. I considered whether I should shower or just go to work as I was. Even though I was a bit hesitant about entering the bathroom, it was just a matter of keeping my eyes closed. How hard could that be? A simple shower, I thought. 10 minutes, and it would be over. Just don't open your eyes. But when I stood at the bathroom door, I wondered, what exactly counted as the process? From the moment I took off my clothes? From the moment I stepped into the bathroom? I thought the most logical starting point was the moment I got into the bathtub and turned on the water. So I entered the bathroom, undressed, pulled back the shower curtains, and stepped in. I looked carefully at where the shampoo and sponge were and tried to memorize their positions. I closed my eyes and turned on the water. I wasn't sure if I expected something to happen. I just heard the water and my own breathing. I turned off the water and started applying the shampoo. Soon after, a scratching sound on the door invaded my ears. Then silence. Then the door slowly opened. I tried to calm myself and told myself I was imagining things. But I wasn't. I just needed to keep my eyes closed. A weak, ragged breathing filled the space. It sounded like someone scraping a chalkboard. I froze completely. Was this the kind of thing the rule meant by resist the urge to open them? I just had to finish the shower. I couldn't turn back now. I turned on the water and continued. Keep my eyes closed. Now I could only hear the water running and my breathing. The more I listened, the more terrified I became. Someone was in the bathroom with me. But now that I couldn't hear anything else, I had no idea where they were, which was even more unsettling. But that didn't last long. I heard the curtains behind me being pulled aside. And the breathing. I heard that rough breathing again, now closer. I tried to keep going. I just had to finish the shower. And keep my eyes closed. Keep my eyes closed. I must keep my eyes closed. I opened my eyes. I felt a finger, with a long nail, touching my spine. I turned around and nearly fell when I looked in front of me. A creature. Completely pale, as if its color had run off. Its eyes were very human, but they were hungry. It had no mouth or nose. Its head was just inside the curtains, and its arm was unnaturally long, ending in a hand with 6 long black nails, each at least 2 inches long. At the same time, a strong smell of rotting flesh and bleach hit me, making me nauseous with an uncontrollable urge to vomit. But I didn't. I was too terrified to. When it realized I was looking at it, it stared at me with confusion, which quickly turned into a sort of morbid joy. It stretched its arm toward me and scratched my chest with those 6 nails. The pain was sharp, much stronger than you'd expect from just a scratch. I brought my hand to my chest and felt my blood running. It retreated behind the shower curtains, and I could see the shadow of its silhouette. It was much larger than the bathroom. It had to bend completely to fit. It was a thin creature, and all its limbs were longer than anatomically possible. It opened the door and twisted its entire body to leave. I think I heard something snap and break as it did. I could hear its footsteps heading toward the apartment door, along with its breathing, which had turned into a high-pitched wheeze. About 5 minutes later, I heard my phone ringing, but I couldn't move. I spent at least another 20 minutes inside the bathroom. When I finally got out, I looked around every corner of the apartment for any trace of the creature. Its footprints had left a kind of transparent slime that smelled like it. The footprints also had 6 toes. I went to the phone, which was still ringing. I answered. "What did you do?" It was the building owner. I don't know. I answered with a weak, almost inaudible voice. "You were supposed to follow the rules. Don't leave. I'm coming to you." And she hung up. A minute later, someone knocked on the door, but didn't say anything. I guessed it was too early for her. I called her again, but she didn't answer. I stayed in the corner where I was. It's been half an hour, and I'm still here, frozen, while someone keeps knocking on the door. I don't know if I should open it. /Part 2 / EP made a waiter's life miserable for 20 minutes straight. I said something. Big mistake. This happened a few weeks ago and I still think about it sometimes. I was sitting alone at a cafe having lunch, minding my own business. At the table next to me there was a woman with a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The kid seemed fine, honestly, pretty quiet. The mom was the problem. From the moment the waiter came over she was in full performance mode. The kid ordered a grilled cheese. Simple enough. Waiter brings it out, kid takes one look at it and the mom immediately flags the waiter down. He doesn't like when the bread is too toasted. Waiter apologizes, takes it back. New one comes out. Actually, can you cut it diagonally? He prefers that. Waiter does it. Kid hasn't even touched it yet. Mom leans in, inspects it like she's checking for contraband, then looks up and goes, "Is this a different bread than last time?" It looks different. The waiter, who at this point has been standing at their table for a combined 15 minutes across multiple trips, very calmly said it was the same bread. The mom made this face like he'd just insulted her entire family line and said loudly, "I just want my son to have a good experience, is that too much to ask?" That was the thing that got me. The kid was fine. He was playing with a straw and not paying attention to any of it. I leaned over and said something like, "The waiter has been really patient, maybe give him a break." I kept my voice calm, I wasn't trying to start anything. She turned to me so fast I actually flinched. Suddenly I was a stranger who has no idea what it's like to raise a child, and she was going to speak to the manager about the hostile environment. She did go speak to the manager. About me. I got a very awkward apology from the manager who clearly just wanted everyone to calm down. The waiter caught my eye on the way out and mouthed "thank you," so I'm choosing to focus on that part. TLDR, EP spent 20 minutes terrorizing a waiter over a grilled cheese while her kid sat there unbothered. I said something. She reported me to the manager. Waiter mouthed "thank you" on my way out. The couple next door has been drunk every weekend since I moved in, and at this point I feel like I'm the only adult in their kid's life who notices anything. I moved into my current apartment about 7 months ago. The neighbors directly next to me are a couple, I'd guess late 30s, with a daughter who looks maybe 8 or 9. I don't know their names, we've exchanged maybe 4 sentences total. What I do know is that from Friday evening through most of Sunday they are loudly, consistently drunk. Not aggressive, not violent from what I can tell, just that specific kind of loud where every conversation is at full volume and nothing that comes out makes complete sense. This part alone I could ignore. What I can't really shake is the kid. I see her in the hallway pretty regularly. She's always alone, often in the same clothes she had on the day before, letting herself in and out of the apartment with her own key. Last Saturday morning around 8 a.m. I was heading out and she was sitting on the floor outside their door eating crackers from a sleeve, fully dressed, backpack next to her. I asked if she was waiting for someone. She said her parents were still sleeping and she didn't want to wake them. It was a Saturday, so there was no school, she wasn't going anywhere, she was just sitting there. Becky, she knew better than to be inside. I said she could knock on my door if she ever needed anything, and she nodded in that way kids do when they're being polite but absolutely will not take you up on it. I went back inside and left a small bag with some fruit and a juice box outside my door, which was gone when I came home. I don't know what the right thing to do here is. She's not in danger in any visible dramatic way, she's just a kid who has clearly learned to be very self-sufficient around people who are not. My dad genuinely thought showing up to 1 game a year made him present, and I'm only now understanding how messed up that was. Opening day is next week and every single year this comes back to me like clockwork. My dad was obsessed with baseball. Not in a fun, let's watch it together way. In a way where the sport had a full life inside our house and we were sort of guests in it. He had a dedicated room for his memorabilia, a schedule on the fridge with every home game circled in red, and a personal rule that nothing, and I mean nothing, was allowed to interrupt a broadcast. Birthdays, school plays, parent-teacher conferences. All negotiable. A Tuesday night regular season game in April was not. I remember being around 9 or 10 and having a really bad asthma attack during a game. My mom had to handle the whole thing alone because he sat in the doorway of my room for maybe 40 seconds, decided I looked okay, and went back downstairs. He genuinely believed he'd checked in. That was his version of being there. The part that took me the longest to name was how entitled he was about our emotional reactions to all of this. If I ever brought up feeling like he wasn't around, he'd get this look like I'd accused him of a crime. He'd list everything he provided: the house, the food, my equipment. For the one season he made me play softball because he thought it would bring us closer. He never once considered that presence isn't a bill you pay, it's a choice you make over and over. I'm in my late 20s now and I genuinely tense up when I hear a baseball announcer on TV. Not because I hate the sport. Because my nervous system still apparently associates it with being a low priority in my own home. He calls every March now, excited about the new season, and talks for 20 minutes about trades and pitching rotations, and I just listen and think about that 9-year-old kid struggling to breathe while he watched the 7th inning stretch. Some of us grew up understanding very early that we were background characters in someone else's main story. My ex deleted my save files, but forgot to delete his streaming services. Title explains it all. A few years ago, my ex-boyfriend and I split up. I moved out almost immediately. Our shared items were left behind, including the PlayStation 4. He kept trying to get back together, but honestly I was really tired of constantly taking care of him like a child. Reasons are below but not important to the story much. We both worked, him from home, all he had to do was cover his half of the rent and groceries. Oftentimes we would go to the store, in my car. He didn't have one and was saving up for one, which was fine, at his insistence to grab food/snacks, and when we got to the register, he somehow always had a mystery bill that ran just as we got to the store. He would make a huge deal out of it and put me on the spot to pay in front of everyone. He did this maybe 5 times over the course of a month, and then one day, received a massive order of computer parts for his PC that he was custom building for gaming. Oh, and he needed me to cover the rent for that month, lol. Also, could his brother move in until he got a job? And the final straw, asking what I had in savings and then sending me a Christmas wish list for all $2,500 worth of my savings. Anyways, I moved out and left him and his brother to handle that, taking myself off the lease. He kept trying to bribe me, and started insisting I could have X and Y and Z items, including the PlayStation. I accepted the PlayStation. He kept delaying me coming up to pick up everything that was deemed mine, then one day dropped it all off on my new porch. I plug in my PS4 and he deleted all of my game data. Hundreds of hours in my RPGs. Everything. But I notice as I go to set up my Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Crunchyroll etc. that everything is logged in under his mom's name and there's one account for each kid and a guest account. I've been using the guest account for about 4 years on every service. I have yet to be cut off, Netflix being the only exception. Thanks for the savings, I guess. I still miss my old files. If you enjoyed these stories, hit subscribe for more.